For years, Prince Harry has shared his version of events surrounding his departure from royal life. Through interviews, a documentary series, and his memoir, Spare, he described the emotional toll of stepping back from royal duties and the tension that defined that period. Central to that story was one pivotal moment: the January 2020 family meeting at Sandringham. That gathering, often referred to as the Sandringham Summit, took place at the private Norfolk estate of Queen Elizabeth II following Harry and Meghan's public announcement that they intended to step back as senior working royals. It was a defining crossroads. The future of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, inside or outside the monarchy, had to be decided. Harry has described that meeting as deeply emotional. In public interviews, including his conversation with Oprah Winfrey, and later in his Netflix docuseries, he spoke about feeling unheard and overwhelmed. He described tension in the room and emphasized how painful the process felt from his perspective. But recently, renewed interest in that summit has resurfaced following the release of a documentary on Channel 5 titled Megxit: Inside the Sandringham Summit. The program revisits the event through interviews with journalists who covered the royal beat at the time and examines how reporting in early 2020 compares to Harry's later reflections. What makes this compelling is not that someone is exposing a secret, but that it highlights how perspective shapes memory. The documentary leans heavily on contemporaneous reporting. Journalists who were outside Sandringham during those tense winter days described what palace sources were signaling in real time. According to reporting from that period, the monarchy's position appeared firm. There would not be a part-time model. A senior royal could not simultaneously pursue independent commercial ventures while representing the crown. In Harry's later account, he has said he proposed a half-in, half-out arrangement, a compromise allowing the couple to retain some official duties while also building financial independence. That idea, he explained, was rejected. The Channel 5 program frames the situation differently. It suggests the institution had constitutional boundaries that limited flexibility from the start. From that viewpoint, the outcome may have been less about personal rejection and more about structural constraints. Neither version fully cancels the other out. Family conflict often feels personal on one side and procedural on the other. To Harry, the refusal may have felt like betrayal. To palace officials, it may have felt like necessity. The documentary also revisits another aspect of the summit that has drawn attention over time: who was present and who was not. Meghan did not attend the meeting in person. At the time, reports indicated she remained in Canada with their infant son. Harry later suggested the timing made participation difficult and described feeling isolated. The documentary explores the logistical and security reasoning that was reported during that week, including concerns about confidentiality and the sensitivity of high-level discussions. Again, what feels exclusionary from one perspective may appear procedural from another. One of the most talked about elements of Harry's public retelling was his description of heated exchanges with his brother Prince William. In his memoir, he wrote about arguments that underscored how strained their relationship had become. The documentary does not attempt to replay private conversations. Instead, it focuses on how long-building tensions may have influenced the atmosphere. The brothers had reportedly disagreed for months about media strategy, royal duty, and pace of change. By the time Sandringham occurred, the relationship was already fragile. Context matters. It's easy to reduce family breakdown to a single explosive moment. In reality, fractures form slowly. The summit ultimately produced a clear result. Harry and Meghan would step back fully from working royal roles. They would no longer use their HRH styles in practice, and they would pursue financial independence abroad. That arrangement was formalized in a statement from Buckingham Palace. In hindsight, the Sandringham Summit marked not just a departure, but a transformation. Harry transitioned from working royal to media figure. The narrative shifted from palace insider to independent storyteller. And storytelling has power.
When Spare was released, it became one of the fastest-selling non-fiction books in recent history. Its candid tone drew both praise and criticism. Supporters applauded the transparency. Critics questioned the airing of private disputes. The Channel 5 documentary doesn't claim to invalidate Harry's account. Rather, it places it alongside archived reporting and asks viewers to consider how narratives evolve. Public memory is rarely static. As years pass, emotions sharpen certain details and soften others. Media incentives also play a role. A memoir is shaped differently than a palace communiqué. The bigger question might not be who is right, but how do stories change over time? The Sandringham meeting has become symbolic. For some, it represents an institution unwilling to modernize. For others, it reflects the difficulty of balancing personal freedom with inherited responsibility. The documentary reopens that conversation at a moment when public opinion around Harry and Meghan has shifted from intense curiosity to more divided debate. 5 years ago, their exit dominated global headlines. Today, the story is less about shock and more about sustainability. Did Sandringham close a chapter, or did it plant the seeds for ongoing tension? The answer may depend on which version of events resonates most with you. If the Sandringham Summit defined the break, what followed defined the brand. After relocating to California, Harry and Meghan signed major production deals and launched philanthropic initiatives through Archwell. Their Netflix docuseries generated enormous viewership upon release, and Spare topped international bestseller lists. At the same time, criticism intensified. Some observers argued that sharing private family disputes contradicted earlier calls for privacy. Others felt the couple was simply reclaiming their voice after years of silence. Media cycles moved quickly. What began as a dramatic departure gradually became part of a broader conversation about celebrity reinvention. The Channel 5 documentary arrives during a period of reassessment. Public fascination with the royal family remains strong, but attention is increasingly split between multiple narratives: King Charles's reign, Prince William's growing role as heir, and the Sussexes' independent path in the United States. One of the lingering debates concerns titles. The agreement following Sandringham stated that Harry and Meghan would not use their HRH styles in practice because they were no longer working members of the royal family. They retained the styles technically, but agreed not to deploy them publicly. Occasional references to titles in media coverage have sparked online debate, but the palace has not issued new statements altering the arrangement. Constitutional authority to change styles lies with the monarch, and such decisions historically occur through formal channels. Speculation about future action often reflects public sentiment more than confirmed plans. Another layer of scrutiny surrounds commercial success. Some projects have been widely viewed, others have received mixed critical reception. That is not unusual in entertainment. High-profile figures often face heightened expectations. The key difference is that every metric tied to Harry and Meghan is interpreted symbolically. A strong premiere becomes proof of relevance. A lukewarm review becomes evidence of decline. The documentary subtly highlights how narrative framing can amplify these swings. In 2020, headlines focused on rupture. In 2022, they focused on revelation. By 2025, the focus has shifted toward long-term positioning. Are the Sussexes cultural commentators, lifestyle entrepreneurs, advocates, former royals forging a hybrid identity? Public clarity remains elusive. At the same time, the royal institution continues operating within centuries-old structures. King Charles III has emphasized continuity and service. Prince William has taken on increasing public responsibility. The contrast between institutional duty and independent branding remains stark. The Sandringham documentary underscores one reality: History is rarely settled in real time. What felt like a dramatic escape to some felt like a constitutional inevitability to others. What felt like suppression to one party felt like protocol to another. And 5 years later, both interpretations coexist. The most intriguing aspect may be how relationships evolve privately while public narratives continue loudly. Reconciliation within families does not always mirror media arcs. Silence can mean distance, or it can mean healing out of view. The Channel 5 program ultimately leaves viewers with an unresolved tension rather than a verdict. Was Sandringham a necessary boundary? A missed compromise? A painful misunderstanding? Perhaps it was all three. Harry has spoken openly about therapy and growth. The palace has largely maintained discretion. The documentary bridges those approaches by revisiting documented reporting without fully endorsing either side. In the end, the Sandringham Summit symbolizes a moment when personal desire collided with institutional tradition. That collision produced change, not only for Harry and Meghan, but for the monarchy itself. The concept of stepping back from royal life in a globally connected media era remains unprecedented. Whether the Sussex narrative ultimately strengthens or weakens their long-term influence remains uncertain. Reputation is shaped not by a single documentary, memoir, or meeting, but by cumulative consistency.